Well, Pace Engineering was founded in March of 1976, 40 years ago. And it actually began right here in this living room. Earlier, I had had lunch with Paul Jones and told him that, I was interested in starting an engineering company. And he immediately said, "Hey, count me in." He said, "I'd like to do some land development work." And we were all working with CH2M Hill at that time. And our third partner was Ray Toney. And Ray Toney, we called him that evening and said, "Hey, would you be interested in getting into a new business where you could do your contracting?" And he was called back 30 minutes later and said, "Yeah." So the three of us began in my back bedroom. In fact, I have a picture over here of me sitting at a card table, processing our timesheets and sending out our first bills. All of the early leaders in Pace Engineering were family men that wanted to have a good family life for themselves, but also for anyone coming into Pace. We wanted all the key employees especially to be family oriented, and that's one of our desires, was not to have to work across country and do a lot of travel, but to have our business located here in Redding where we wanted to live and raise our families. As we developed Pace Engineering, all three of us had worked for CH2M Hill, and which was really probably the largest engineering company in the country. And we really all liked our job there, but we didn't like the travel, and it was just an urge to want to do our own thing. Our firm was largely modeled after what we saw at their firm, because the key people in the firm were also the owners. And so we set up the same kind of administration of the company, in that if somebody was very valuable to the company, they were called a key employee, and they were also eligible to have a share in the ownership of the company. Originally it was a partnership, later became a corporation, and so our ownership was intended to be kind of split up as much as possible based on the worth of the individual to the company. And the newer people were encouraged to purchase stock in the company and use bonuses to purchase stock. And the older people were then able to sell their stock to the younger people, and it was just a setup to try and honor the people that had been there for a while and were driving the firm, but also to encourage new owners to come into the firm. And of course, that kind of a model creates a very low turnover in the number of people that quit and go to somewhere else, because they were being honored for their work. And so during our years at Pace, we had very, very few people leave the firm. I think one of the things we strived for was to have a really good client-engineer relationship, one that was long-lasting, one that the client could call up the engineer and ask him a question at any point, and that engineer would be familiar with that problem and that client and his needs. And by doing so, we kept many of our clients for, I'm sure we still have them. and it was just a good relationship, and that's what we strive for, was to have that close relationship with a client. And by having key employees that were owners, that were continuing to stay in their job and not move on to another company, well, we had a good client-engineer relationship.
So as far as what attracted me to Pace was the people, and they were just very respectful, very professional, and that's what I remember as being basically a college student with no experience. Couldn't bring a lot of technical ability to the team, but they treated me like I was somebody and that I knew something. You know, they treated me with respect, and it just made me feel really good. These kind of people I want to hang out with and work with. And we've tried to kind of foster that culture, and I think it's worked pretty well. We've been really fortunate that we have been able to attract really highly motivated, smart people and keep them here. Our company is only as good as our collective group of people, and they're outstanding. When I leave here and I go home or somewhere away from the office, I start to dwell on things. But when you come in here, you get this sense of empowerment, and everything just kind of calms down. Okay, I'm good. We'll be fine. So that's what this group does, at least for me. So it's pretty nice. The family values that Pace was founded on are extremely important. Kind of looking back on it, I think that's probably one of the things that attracted me to the company. I was impressed by all the people, but those values were really important to me, especially as a young person in college. And if you look at most of our employees at Pace, they're all family people, and they're very active in their kids' lives, whether they're little kids or they're married with grandkids. And that culture, I think, that was started by those guys, we've been able to pass along. The value of our company is in the people. We're only as good as our people, and that's our most important asset, and they have to be taken care of at all costs. That was kind of passed, I think, from Larry and Paul, you know, through a couple generations of leadership to me, and I've totally bought in. We work on things that the general public takes for granted. Like, you know, where's your water come from? You know, where's your wastewater go when you flush the toilet or take a shower? An engineer had to design those things. You know, you drove across the Highway 44 bridge. You know, who designed that bridge? I don't care. I just need to get from A to B. So the things we work on are not terribly glorified, depending on your perspective. We're not designing the next Empire State Building or the next Golden Gate Bridge in most cases. Our structural engineers aren't, you know, designing the big bass sculptures on the new Lakehead Bridge up in Lakehead. They're designing a block building to house a water booster pump that's located out in the peripheries of Bella Vista that nobody ever sees. So we think it's exciting and it's challenging. You know, nobody sees the wires running through the walls or cares about the light switches, but it had to be designed by an engineer, and we were there.
I think the most rewarding part of my job was when the client felt good about the projects when they were completed, and that continuing client relationship that was so important for us to maintain, for longevity of a client-engineer relationship. Yeah, I think that was just the gratitude that we would get from a client was probably the most rewarding thing.